Now, in terms of that conflict that you alluded to, did that lead to, I mean, a creation of tension between, let's say, Butler, and how did that degenerate or affect the labor movement?
Right. It affected the labor movement. It resulted in separate organizations being formed, right? In the 1930s, Rienzi decided to part ways with Butler, 1936, and form Trinidad Citizens League, right? And Butler decided later on to form British Empire Workers and Citizens Home Rule Party. Cipriani had Trinidad Labour Party. So we are seeing three major working class organizations, right? And it's very unfortunate that it continued in the 1940s. In the 1940s, they had almost 5 sugar unions, right? And what I tell a lot of people is that in 1948, there was an uprising in the sugar belt, Central, Esperanza, Woodford Lodge, and the Indo-Trinidadian sugar workers were asking for Butler to represent them.
Really?
There was a union with Lionel Sukaran, and they wanted Butler. They were calling him Gandhi and things, you know. So it's very interesting, as I'm telling you, the whole idea of race was secondary, right? It was somebody where the working class had a certain amount of unity and solidarity that I wish was here today. You know, that is why we're having these problems today, even with TSTT, you know, and the union, this tension. There is no union solidarity to put some pressure in terms of bargaining, collective bargaining, and this sort of thing. But I feel that the working class then, despite having 3 independent organizations, they were sure that they would be represented by these people, right? That their voices would be heard in the Legislative Council, and that if they want an increase in wages, they would get it. If there's a problem with working conditions, they would be there. If somebody is injured or they die, their matter will be taken up in court.
Why do you think his contribution has largely been lost on, you know, succeeding generations?
Right. Well, that question came up at the symposium, right? A few people got up. I allowed public interaction, and they were wondering, first of all, why we hear so much about Eric Williams, right, as the first Prime Minister. Why is there a statue of Cipriani? And I want to believe is that we tend, a few Trinidadians, have short-term memories. You know?
Tell me about it.
Next week, might forget about the Soca Warriors, you know? So I really feel that we need to go back into our past and examine these heroes, these personalities, look at their philosophy, their ideology. Like I've been telling people, every year we have the Eric Williams Memorial Lecture. Why not have a Rienzi Memorial Lecture? You know, a Cipriani lecture. Why not give out a Rienzi Memorial Scholarship for trade unionists to study at Cipriani Labour College or UTT or UE? This would be keeping his name in the public eye. You know? And I feel that just naming a highway or a building might be a bit lip service. You know? The school children might come across his name in Cape or CXC, but that's about it.
And at that, even then, they may be at a loss to know what he, you know, what was the significance, you know, of his contribution to the labor movement. You know,
they will know his name, but not about the depth of his work.
That's right, how his contribution,
right, regionally and internationally. And as I mentioned, he worked good with Butler. What I also found while he was in England, he was working good with Marcus Garvey, the Jamaican who had the Universal Negro Improvement Association. He was working with the Negro Welfare Association in England. He was working with George Padmore, another Trinidadian who did a lot of work in Africa.
In the Pan-African movement.
He was friends with C.L.R. James. So he realized that the struggle is not among ourselves. It is trying to end imperialism, end colonialism, end exploitation. So this is why he created these bonds with the Irish, right, with the Indians in India, and with his own Afro-Caribbean brothers. You know, it is something that is sadly lacking today. There's too much divisions, pettiness. So I think we have a lot, not just the children, but the public, to appreciate and learn about Rienzi.
Do you know of any efforts by any of the trade unions, maybe the larger ones, to have this history of Adrian Cola Rienzi documented as it rightly should be? Have there been any efforts in that regard at all? Have they discussed it at all?
Unfortunately, no. It is very sad that not just the two unions, but the other unions, they do not have the resources. You cannot walk into a union and say, I would like a folder on Adrian Cola Rienzi. I'd like to see newspaper
It's not
clippings.
available.
It's not available. Even in
That's
our
sad.
even in our public library, Nalis libraries.
Yes.
You cannot walk in there and say, I would like to see a folder on Rienzi, right? And it is very unfortunate. I feel every June 19th, we need a little article.
Of course.
You know, keep
Yes.
this knowledge alive. And what is happening next year, both the Sugar Union and OWTU celebrate their 70th anniversary. They were formed in 1937. So I'm hoping maybe they could begin a series of lectures.
Yes.
Looking at past President Generals, include Rienzi, and do a little pamphlet, a booklet, something that could be circulated, have a documentary, you know.
Yes.
A few months ago, we lost John LaRose,
Yes.
right?
Yes, another contributor to the labor movement.
a great activist. And I'm hoping that maybe in the future, we could have something about him on the curriculum in our secondary schools, right? He's one of these great people.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the work that Dr. Samaru has done, you said a book is to be published.
Yeah, a book will be
next year?
published.
Next year, God's willing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he will be looking at Rienzi in depth.
Okay.
He will be examining not just his personal lifestyle, but his involvement in party politics, trade unionism at the regional level. And I think that will be a seminal contribution.
Yes.
You know, it is something that sadly we are lacking in Trinidad. And also at the symposium, and I had mentioned to you earlier, that we need more intellectual discussion in Trinidad. Instead of going to these political meetings and hearing peacock and mudslinging, you know, and character assassination, we need to start discussing personalities. We need to look at our history, you know, and that is something that I think we had when Eric Williams was alive in Woodford Square. You got an education.
Yes.
You heard about Plato and Aristotle, you know. You heard about these philosophers. And that is, I think, where what we need to bring back into the public, not just in the party politics, but into the public life. You know, a series of intellectual lectures. Remember we had literary and debating clubs long time?
Yes, yes, yes. I was part of one in my school in Point 14.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we need that sort of thing to encourage the young people to become a bit more analytical. You know, because we have the semester system at UWI, you tend to just memorize quickly.
Yes,
You know?
yeah. Get through the exams and
You just want to pass. We need to ensure that our young people, they are good debaters, they could analyze, because Trinidadians always had a great past.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
in doing that throughout the world, we have always been looked at intellectually. Right?
Well, Doctor, I want to thank you very much. We're out of time, but I want to thank you very much for coming and, you know, throwing this light on the contribution of Adrian Cola Rienzi to the labor movement.
Right.
Really look forward to the work from Dr. Samaru.
Correct.
And, of course, you know, feel free to come at any time and, you know, let's, you know, have some more discourse
Yes.
on the life of Adrian Cola Rienzi as he made his contribution to the labor movement here in Trinidad and Tobago. So I want to thank you very much.
Thank you for having me,
and,
Mr. Victor.
Yes. And of course, that was Dr. Jerome Teelucksingh, and we were discussing the contribution of Adrian Cola Rienzi to the labor movement.